Thank you and welcome. Do need to acknowledge the sponsors of this program, and first up, the Peregian Digital Hub. I'm sure for many of you this would be your first time here, and you'd be understanding what an amazing facility we have here that Chris leads. You'll see plenty of Chris throughout this program. So the Peregian Digital Hub and Noosa Council as sponsors, but also Advance Queensland has sponsored, and the Regional Development Authority for Sunshine Coast and Moreton Bay has also made this possible. So today's agenda, I'll be doing just a bit of a scene set around the program and what we're trying to achieve. Then talking a bit about what good AI adoption looks like and some of the learnings we had from the first cohort. So we ran this, a very similar program back in May, learned a lot, made some tweaks. So we'll talk a bit about that and talk about some of the things that the first cohort are doing around AI. Then I'm going to hand to Chris, who is going to challenge the way you think about AI and the possibilities and what it means for both you and for your organisation. And help with some fundamental concepts around AI. So I guess, certainly I think if it's a bit like maths in primary school, if you understand at a technical level some of the real basics, all the other stuff flows. Some of the things that look like magic, you understand how they work and you get to control the magic. So it's pretty powerful if you understand some of these fundamental concepts. Come on in.
Thank you.
And so Chris will take you through that. And then you're getting hands-on. So I'm hoping that each of you here to have your laptops, I'm hoping that you've got access to a paid account, really ideally, of your favourite AI system. So whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or plenty of the other options, but preferably ChatGPT or Claude. Having the paid account just lets you use some of the features that we'll be going a bit deeper into over the next 4 weeks. This pack that we're running through is also at this URL down the bottom there. So if you are playing along on your laptop. I'm just going to talk a bit about the goal of the program, then I'll make some introductions as to who's going to be helping you through this process. So the Uplift program is part of a wider initiative that Chris has kicked off called Tokenization, which is really about trying to make the Sunshine Coast a bit of an AI hotspot. So the other aspects of the Tokenizer program, Chris calls it a full court press. There's different programs, different targets. So that might be at startups, for instance. This program is around SMEs. So the thesis in coming up with this program is we believe that AI, the changes that will be brought about by AI are pretty profound for businesses. And as Sunshine Coast locals, we want to help the Sunshine Coast be at the forefront of that, both from an opportunity and a risk perspective. And we think the best way to do that in terms of impact is with organisations such as the ones that you represent. So organisations that are sort of employing, sort of your 10 plus employees is really what the design is intended for. One, because of the impact. So if we're trying to help the coast in the most effective ways, that's one way to do it. But also in the sense that when you get to an organisation that's a little bit larger, it gets a little bit more tricky in terms of implementing AI. There's different considerations around change management, adoption, security, data. So it's not quite as straightforward as it might be if you're working in a solo business. So yes, so the intent is around sort of the 10 plus. Who have you got in the room? We haven't got everyone in the room, I have to say, because I think we've had a few people sick or away for the first week, including some of our team. We've got 2 people down today with gastro, which is unfortunate. In terms of who's here in the room or represented in the program, so as I said, we've sort of got this predominant chunk around the sort of the 0 to 20. We've got a bunch of you that are sort of 20 to 40 through to 100 employees, and then a couple of whales. Anita, you get the Freddo frog. So a good breadth of organisational size, but everyone, I guess, has got similar challenges around the adoption piece. Where do you work? So professional services is the biggest category. So that we've got some engineering firms, we've got some legal firms. So people doing sort of the broad sector around professional services. We've got a bunch of manufacturers. So we had a lot of manufacturers in our first cohort, and they got a lot of value out of the program. So great to see more coming. Similarly with food and ag, we've got some education, we've got some healthcare, we've got some media. So we're pretty much crossing the gamut, which is great because it means that you get to learn different things in terms of what works or what's been tried in different parts of different organisations. And also, the intent is that you're bringing some expertise for your sector as well. So if there's experts in PR and marketing, then I'm sure there's plenty of people here that would love to understand more about what you can do and particularly how AI might be applied to their organisation. So let's just talk a bit about the program design. So you would have seen a little bit about this in the introduction. This looks a little bit complicated, but it is very intentional in the design. And this design is, I guess, something that we found worked well with the first cohort. We've made some tweaks based on what we observed worked in that first cohort. So essentially, you've got a set of 4 workshops that you'll be doing over the next 4 weeks. Each of those workshops, we're trying to emphasise very much around having both case studies, so looking at businesses that have gone through what you were going through, and hands-on in the tools. So certainly in our experience, when you're trying to get AI adopted in an organisation, it needs to come top down. You need to have the leadership group on the tools, understanding the tools, using them at home, using them at work. And that's really what kicks off this flow within the organisation. It doesn't work bottom up when you've got the leaders in the organisation who just don't quite get it, or you get all the fears, you get all the concerns, it's just a lack of understanding. So these workshops are designed for the organisational leaders to get hands-on and look at practical considerations around what works. We look at things like adoption strategies. We've then, after that, we've got what we added a staff workshop. So this is intended for your staff. So one of the challenges we've found obviously is, we get all the leaders excited, then how do we get that moving throughout the organisation? So we've offered this sort of an abridged one-time workshop that tries to take key pieces of the workshops that we're doing over the next 4 weeks, where the audience is more your staff. So we're hoping that a bunch of them will be able to come along. Obviously, there's capacity constraints. but the idea is that helps the most enthusiastic amongst you to help get it throughout the organisation. We then, within the whole cohort, where people are interested in one-on-one mentoring with the business, that's something we offer through an EOI process again. So this is about saying, I would sit down with you once a month, go through specific challenges that you might have around trying to get AI adopted within your organisation. So we do that for a subset. And then for a subset again of that, we develop what we call the technical proof of concept. So this is using resources provided as part of this program to build something. So something that achieves the purpose of demonstrating value within your organisation. So you can see, hey, this is real, this works, but also ideally something that is good as a communication tool within your organisation. So if you're trying to promote AI within your organisation, and you can look to this example to say, well, here's something tangible that you can see that we've got going pretty quickly. It helps people think about other use cases within the organisation. They get to see what's possible. We've added some additional legs. So support from experts in the Hub's AI residency program. I'll talk a little bit about a bit further about this soon, but there's people within the Hub that have specific expertise around things that we think will help you. So it's things like change management and working with larger organisations. It's things like Microsoft environments and data and security issues that you might have, which are more predominant in an enterprise setting. So this is people that you could book time with, sit down and try and work through specific challenges for your business. You would have seen the WhatsApp group. We would love everyone to get onto that. One of the core tenets of this program is that it's intended to be a community. The fact that you guys are all here, as I said before, it's not easy to get out and get down here to Peregian, but let's take advantage of that. And you guys can learn from each other. This stuff, AI, is moving so quickly that it's not a point in time. I was saying to Chris before, there's a new release of ChatGPT this morning that has a whole lot of new sets of features and functionality. This is a moving beast. The community lets us keep you up to date with what's changed and helps you learn from each other. So we'd love you to get on that. The other thing we've formalised more this time around is a resource library. So the guys in the residency program are busy building resources which, as you'll see, really help kickstart your process. So things like shared prompts, things like Loom videos that help you get through some of the more tricky implementations, or how do I set this thing up. So we're doing a bunch of things that help with that, with custom GPTs, which might solve particular problems around how do I create an AI usage policy, things like that. So the idea is it's a whole lot of resources, both in terms of processes and tools. There's support from people, there's support for your staff, there's mentoring. So we're hoping that this gets you well covered in terms of this overall process. Whoops, what's a new one? Is that a link, Chris, to
that's the WhatsApp group.
Oh, that's the WhatsApp group. There you go. Shoot away. If you're not on already.
I'm ready.
The pings. But that is also in the pack, obviously. You would have seen that before. Now, who are these people? That's suddenly very bright, isn't it? So the team, today a bit of a fragmented team, unfortunately. So as I said before, so my name is Steve Telburn. So my background is probably coming from your side of the fence. So as an operator of small businesses, so multiple small businesses, then moved into sort of a business advisory capacity, so more about helping organisations adopt emerging technology, so lots of consulting and advice to small businesses around that. Other hats I wear, I work with a venture capital fund called Antler, and we so apparently the largest or the most frequent investor in AI technologies in the world. So what that means for you is, I guess, visibility, access to the latest things around what people are trying to do, the new solutions that are being offered, which ones are working, which ones are not. I also wear a hat as a board director for sort of mid-sized organisations that are going through this sort of struggle around how to adopt these types of technologies. And I have a hat there as the head of risk, which means that it points to me when things go wrong. So I've sort of got that risk hat, I've got the startup hat, and the business operator hat. So different perspectives. Chris, who you will hear plenty of, is head of the Peregian Digital Hub and is really the architect of all of these programs. And I have incredible time for Chris, though he doesn't like me saying it too much out loud. But Chris's real capability is as a translator of complex topics and the big thinking around those complex topics. So, and I think you'll appreciate that more as you get to hear from Chris. The translation of big picture, but also a connector. So Chris is very powerful in terms of trying to bring this community together and all of the skills that are required to help organisations on the Sunshine Coast. Ian, who is one of our down today with Gastro, Ian runs an agency that does lots of AI work, and when we talk about those proof of concept projects that I mentioned before, in our first cohort, Ian built probably 80% of those. So if you move through the program into the proof of concept stage, you're probably going to be working with Ian. We have 2 new additions to our team this cohort, and again, this is in response to what we saw worked and where some of the gaps are. So Nina, number 2 out with Gastro, has expertise in probably the larger side in terms of organisational change. So Nina has great experience in working with organisations through change around adopting technology, and in particular some great insights around how to manage knowledge within an organisation, particularly in the context of the capabilities that AI brings to the table. So if you need help around organisational change, we're going to send you to Nina, and you'll hear more about hear more from Nina throughout the program. Ryan, Ryan does not have Gastro, and Ryan's real value is in real-world implementation, particularly in an enterprise context. Are there any people here that are Microsoft shops? You see, this is why Ryan's here. So last time when we went through this program, we had a bunch of people that were, essentially Microsoft shops, and probably the honest answer is we couldn't help them a whole lot with some things because we didn't know that environment particularly well. Ryan fills that gap. Ryan has great experience in a managed service provider capacity, but also working within larger organisations around deploying AI on a Microsoft platform in particular, but more generally around organisations. So Ryan is going to be our go-to person for some of those technical security, architectural questions that you might have. What do we cover in this program? Hello, Yura. Come on in. So I touched on before in terms of what we expect to cover through the first session today. So that we'll be looking a lot at the fundamental principles. And as I said, if you get things like what do we mean by context, all the other stuff flows. It all makes sense. So concentrate for that bit. What does that mean for your role? What does it mean for the future of knowledge work? We do lots of hands-on work about getting the most out of your large language models. We'll do some work on building some agents. We'll talk about adoption strategies for your business. How do we manage some of those risks? We'll be talking about how do you capture and use organisational knowledge for AI. So this is where a lot of the big thinking opportunity comes around what the future of your organisation could look like in an AI world. We'll be doing case studies, and we'll be looking at a bunch of the other tools that are around. There's a gazillion tools for AI now, covering different sort of use cases, different market verticals, different capabilities. We'll give you a bit of a snapshot of that. What we won't be doing is vibe coding up a new product idea. Would love to do that. We don't have time. We don't have time to do deep dive on some of these tools, using sort of video creation tools. There's some very, very cool stuff available. Chris might throw it in, I don't know, but we can't do deep dive. We can't, unfortunately, either get into a deep discussion around a lot of the ethical considerations around AI and what's the implications for society. We love to chat about those things, but we don't have capacity to do it within this program, unfortunately. So let me kick off with what does good look like for AI adoption sort of now-ish. Now, this is good. This is not end state fantastic. So we will give you a vision around what the future organisation could look like that's truly AI enabled. We will talk about that. But this is somewhat more realistic around what we see today for good AI adoption. We think about it in these sort of different sectors, and this is, there's a lot of information here, and we will cover this in more detail in future session. But we think about people, processes, technology and tools, and leadership. So from a people point of view, when we look at the good organisations, everyone has access to an assistant, ideally with a paid account, as we talked about. People are using this stuff weekly, often daily, in their organisational tasks. They've all been through some level of training, or they have some literacy around how to do this, because there's a big difference in terms of what you get if you don't know what you're doing, which is basically slop, versus somebody who knows how to use these tools properly, and you get incredible results. So there's a massive lift if people understand what they need to do and how to do it. Shared space around wins, so it's having a place where people talk about what's worked and what hasn't worked is important. And we have, I guess, this emergent AI champions. So particularly with the larger organisations, when we talk about adoption, it's not it's not obviously an overnight thing. It tends to be driven from a group, a subset of champions that might be within your different parts of the organisation who help identify those use cases and help bring the whole organisation up to speed. That's generally what we're seeing around the people side. On the process side, there's some AI components to a lot of the key workflows, and people are starting to redesign processes around if we rethought this as an AI first process based on this new capability, how would we do this differently, as opposed to just sticking AI onto an existing process that doesn't necessarily work. This is an important one, a clear policy on what's safe. What am I allowed to do? So can I stick all of this customer data in here? Or the opposite of that is, I don't think I'm allowed to do anything, so I'm going to do nothing. Or, what we refer to as shadow AI use, I'm doing it here, but I haven't told anyone that I'm doing it. So it needs to be clear policy. Experiments are being tracked, so people are trying different things, different use cases, they're tracking them and they're sharing them. We're sharing resources that we use within the organisation. So, what works in terms of operating procedures and so forth. On the technology side and the tool side, I tend to see people are trying to develop an agent of some sort, doing some level of automation. And this is new for the more recent compared to our original cohort, getting a lot more sophisticated around how they capture company knowledge. So we'll talk a lot more about this in the coming weeks, but it's about all the feeders of company knowledge. So, your recordings of your meetings, your existing documentation and procedures all come in to the one place, and that gives incredible power for the things that you then use AI to create. The better you get at capturing knowledge, the better you get in terms of results out the other end. So we're seeing a lot more sophistication around that. From a leadership point of view, it is, there's an openness around AI. It's not just a tech thing. As I said, it's something that the leadership teams are using much more widely themselves, and it's how we work. This is the new way in which we work. People are okay. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to have a shot. There's a tolerance of things not working or failure, and you've got guardrails in place to capture that. There's a clear signal around, we're not trying to put you all out of a job. This is around augmenting capability and understanding how you can give a big lift to the organisational's capacity. It's not about trying to get rid of staff or anything like that, which is obviously a fear that people have. And finally, there's incentives that are aligned to wins. So, there could be just things like, the hack of the month or just general recognition that AI and AI usage is integrated into those sorts of organisational incentives and processes. Okay, how are we doing for time? I'm just going to spend a bit of time just talking about that first cohort. So this is where these guys landed. So they're actually, in terms of makeup, very similar to you guys in terms of profile. This is where they landed after the fourth workshop. So this is obviously a challenge, right? So we're hoping that you guys can score higher. How you going? On some of these metrics that we just talked about in terms of what good AI adoption looks like. So, we saw a really good level of enthusiasm coming out of the workshop series, and people making some clear gains. And back then, they were pretty much starting from scratch. What's this AI thing? Lots of experimentation with use cases, so we saw a lot of that. Happy Pops, Happy Pops. So they an ice cream shop. So they're in Noosa, they're in Maroochydore, South Bank. So going on a bit of an expansion process. So Augusta is doing a lot. AI is integrated into sort of her daily operations. So they're doing things like using AI to help with standard operating procedures for store openings, things like that. But other interesting, use cases where they would, I think there was one case where they had an excess of a particular ingredient. I can't think of what that ingredient was. The supplier sent them too much. They used AI to figure out, well, help me come up with a new recipe that uses this new thing. Some flakes of some sort, I can't remember what it was. But sure enough, creatively came up with some fantastic new recipes for new ice creams, which is really interesting. They also had a situation where they didn't have enough of a particular product, and they used AI to help them substitute that product with another ingredient and stay within the constraints of what they would have around food quality, food safety, those sorts of things. So some really interesting ways that might not be immediately apparent that they were using. We had Locally Legal actually went through a rebrand. They were Kruger Law. Just at the time of our process, of our workshops, they used AI to assist with a lot of the marketing, change in the marketing, and they use it also within their particular practice around finding legal precedents and so forth. Office HQ, which is I think they've got sort of 200 odd staff here on the Sunshine Coast, doing virtual reception. They do virtual reception for clients internationally, so US, UK, and obviously Australia and New Zealand. They've got like a constellation of different brands. They've used AI to take particular marketing messages and apply a different voice and to the different markets that they operate in. So repurposing a particular message. And rather than manually trying to do this 20 odd times, how do we repurpose that in an effective way to speed up their marketing process? They're also doing some interesting things of late around using AI avatars to do customer testimonials. So sort of bringing testimonials to life with an avatar. So we had a lot of experimentation. We've then taken through particular organisations that went through the proof of concept process or beyond. Covey is a mid-sized professional services engineering company based down in Maroochydore. So they're creating, and again, Ian, who cannot be here today, is in the process of building sort of an automated RFP generator. So it's pulling previous proposals that they put together and other internal knowledge within the organisation to help them quote on new work. Bella Manufacturing, they build food trucks predominantly. they've developed an AI storeman. So it's essentially about trying to automate supply orders from the shop floor. So if there's stuff that's missing on the shop floor, there's a quick process to get things ordered. Radar is a manufacturing company operating in defence. We've developed a proof of concept around knowledge management. So they've got internal systems that capture issues or opportunities for workplace improvements. So this knowledge management solution creates insights around those opportunities to provide them with more consolidated program of work around trying to improve their business. Reading Co is a local real estate agent here in Noosa. They have developed, again together with Ian, a pretty cool vendor dashboard which creates insights for their vendors around both structured data and unstructured data. So, it could be comments that people have made as they're doing a walkthrough of a particular property. It could be data that's captured around price signals, bringing that all together into one spot as a vendor portal, which is fantastic from their point of view in terms of, their vendors love to see what's going on in terms of what is relevant to them and the sale of their particular property. So that's pretty cool. Finally, Holistic Asset Management, professional services organisation that does a lot of work around asset management. They've gone a bit further. They've actually employed a part-time chief AI officer, if you like, and they've developed a maintenance strategy agent. So this is sort of a co-pilot that helps their field engineers make better decisions. So it's pulling from a data set of OEM manuals for all of the equipment that they work with. So these guys are all, people that sitting in the room like yourselves some time ago and have gone through this process. So pretty excited to think about the opportunity for all of you to be going through this process and developing some pretty cool stuff and reimagining, I think, what your organisation could be. I'm just going to quickly touch on where these guys have got stuck and the things that we're doing as part of the program to trying to address it. Unclear usage policy. So I touched on this before. There's this hesitation, unknown around what I'm allowed to do. So this is something that is important to work through as an organisation. And we have a little GPT that we haven't used a lot in anger, but we'll give it a good run, which takes you through a bit of a questionnaire to sort of help you, based on the particular characteristics of your organisation, what would make sense as a usage policy based on things like, do you handle customer data? Do you operate in a sector like healthcare or financial services? What's your risk profile like? How far do you want to turn things in terms of risk versus adoption, for instance? Use case prioritisation. So this sort of paralysis of, this is all great, but what do I begin with? So we are trying to help you select things to say, well, let's find things that are easy to do and have some immediate impact. This one we can't help a lot with, but it tends to be, we're too busy with this. We've got to get through the financial year. We've got to get through this. We've got to get through that. So there's just a lack of a dedicated project, a lack of dedicated resources around. We're doing this thing. It's the leadership team has said we're going to allocate resources and time to this project, and it's managed in that way so that it gets done. It's not the thing that gets kicked down the road. Tech stack issues. Ryan will solve all of these. So, you know, we're a Microsoft shop. Copilot doesn't do the things that, you know, Chris is doing when we're doing our workshops. Help me. So, you know, there's some things around that, and how do you manage your the constraints within your organisation around data security, things like that. Rollout is stalled. That's very similar to the resource allocation one in terms of there hasn't been the step taken to try and get wider people in terms of the usage or wider training beyond the leaders of the organisation. Tech skills, we've got to this point. We need some help to build this thing. So again, you know, through the resources at the hub or other people within the Sunshine Coast, we can connect you with. We can help you with some of those technical gaps. Inertia. I think, you know, this is certainly a big one for me. I'm no spring chicken. I've got many years of just operating processes in my head, how I get things done. It's very easy to revert. So it takes a level of discipline to approach a task comes along, and, you know, your first instinct is to, well, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to attack it. When you start to understand, well, I've got this incredible capability that's sitting right behind me, it's a change of habit as to how you get to actually use that and have an effective process, just even yourself, around how you use those tools. But overcoming the habits, breaking those habits is a big one. And finally, a skills gap. So I used AI to do this thing, and it created this slop, and it's rubbish, and it's hallucinating, and it's wrong. A lot of that is a skills gap. So, you know, refreshing on how to use these tools properly, how do you provide the right context, how do you prompt, addresses a lot of that, and particularly as the models become better and continue to become better, that excuse should peel away. So, I am now handing over to Chris, who is going to get into, I guess, expanding your mind around the possibilities around AI and how to think about what you have in front of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I'll grab that laptop. Power.
Rightio. Hi everyone, Chris Boden, the Executive Janitor here at the Digital Hub. It's a real pleasure to have you all here. Steve, thanks so much for opening that up for us, setting the context. Geez, there's just so much I could tell you. It's such an exciting time to be in technology, to be using technology, to be in business. And I've really struggled this morning to try to think about how do I take all of the stuff and in an hour, not just drone on, but leave you with some fundamental concepts and hopefully have you walk away with something useful and some new skills that you'll want to come back next week. Big challenge. I thought I'd start with just a couple of ideas, which one is sort of an idea that I've learned that has been a pretty good guiding principle through the last sort of 18 months since I heard him say this, and which I think is a good one for us to think about as leaders of our organizations. Satya Nadella is the CEO of Microsoft, has been for, I think, over 10 years now, and has done an incredible job of leading that company over that period, and it's reflected in the fact that Microsoft have done a pretty good job catching up on cloud and are doing a good job in AI. Satya is a fantastic CEO, and I like this idea that he shared, which is that one of the sort of properties of AI that he likes and that I've come to really like is this idea that it simultaneously lowers the floor and it raises the ceiling, simultaneously being important, meaning it's not a kind of either or. So what he means by this is lowering the floor means that it reduces the barrier to entry for a lot of fields where people with less experience can achieve sort of more accomplished outcomes, more closer to sort of expert outcomes, although they don't necessarily have an expert background. And then, if that's all it was, well, that would be something of a zero-sum situation where the experts are like, we hate AI because all of these plebs now suddenly can do all this amazing stuff. What's in it for us? But it isn't a zero-sum game. What it does on the other end is that it raises the ceiling and lets the experts, many of you are experts in your fields, achieve and push beyond into areas that we haven't previously been able to do that. Taking stuff that frankly is in the too hard basket or we just never quite got to it, and being able to revisit those things and push a lot higher. So I love the fact that it sort of addresses both of those things, and I've seen this in the last couple of years while we've been running these programs at the Hub. I've seen people who never could do X before be able to do that at quite an accomplished level, and I've seen people who are experts in certain areas really push and achieve absolutely amazing things. So I thought I'd just share that idea with you, and the sort of provocation that we have for you guys is, how do we harness AI so that it enables our juniors to produce expert outputs, and that our experts to do things, allows our experts to do things that you've not been able to do before, taking things out of the too hard basket or the sort of really dreamy ideas that we had that we haven't been able to achieve, and help our experts get to that. So that's sort of concept number one, idea number one that I wanted to share. And then the second sort of concept or idea that I wanted to share is a sort of quite opinionated view of how I'm seeing the world of knowledge work change. And I'm sort of going to dig into this because I hope will set the context for some of the stuff we're going to do in the future sessions. So all of us are knowledge workers in some way, shape or form. Most of us spend our time sitting behind a computer, either one that sits on our desktop or one that's in our pocket, and we produce knowledge work. The knowledge work takes the form of what I call artifacts. Artifacts are really the things that make the world of business go around. We don't really like to kind of acknowledge it, but the truth of the matter is they do. You've got to work backwards from this. It all ends with this. If the invoice doesn't get issued, the payment doesn't happen, we don't pay salaries, the business dies. So these are the artifacts, at least a subset of the artifacts that make the world of business go around. And we actually spend a huge amount of our time as knowledge workers producing these artifacts. Analysis, emails, proposals, quotes, plans, presentations, invoices, and so forth. But this is the non-negotiable. We have to produce these artifacts. And as knowledge workers, this is kind of the current model. We sit at our computers, we produce artifacts. It's a big part of the business world. We do that using tools. We have now, of course, a massive array of tools, SaaS tools, messaging tools, the browser, kind of a key tool that we use every day, desktop apps, messaging apps, Microsoft Office, and so forth. And the world that we're moving to, that we're just really starting to see happening as the AI models get better and better and better, is this sort of model that I want to share with you, which is nothing really changes here. The artifacts remain the things that make the world go around, the world of business go around. But the way in which those get produced is that increasingly this piece, the use of the tools to produce the artifacts, is increasingly being done by AI. And the humans and their unique capabilities, which frankly are not necessarily spending hours and hours doing artifact production, we really start to harness the things that humans uniquely are good at. We harness ideas, oversight, goals, curation, taste. This is why there is a pretty, I think, exciting view of the future of knowledge work, or the future of work. It isn't just this thing that AI takes all the jobs or AI does all the automation, what are we going to do? There's a lot of stuff here that is, I think, the far more interesting, far higher value activities that we need to free our human resources up to do and put the systems in place that enable the AIs and the agents to produce the artifacts and do the sort of low-level grunt work in many instances, and then assist us with the development of our ideas, of our orchestration, of our goal development, and so forth. So this is the sort of second idea that I wanted to share with you, which is, the thing about this is that one can have many of these, and the incremental cost of adding another one of these and another one of these and another one of these is relatively low. So what that means is if you can harness this model, your leverage to be able to produce more valuable outputs and artifacts goes up significantly, because you don't have a bottleneck where humans have to do all of that stuff. Humans can do this stuff, you can have many agents, and the agents give you the capacity to produce a lot more in terms of artifacts. So that's kind of like a rough model. You can all come back to me in a year or two and say you were totally wrong about that. But take that as a prognostication, and I'm open to being totally wrong. But this is sort of the tools that or the model that I'm personally kind of trying to work on for my own work is trying to put this in place as much as possible. Trying to move off the low-level tool activity, focus more of my attention and energy on these things, improve the quality and outputs of these and the volume of these without getting bogged down in that. That's sort of the two ideas, top-level ideas I wanted to share. Now, none of us really get to sit and watch a 15-minute video at home. We're always getting interrupted. But this is a video that every single person who walks into this hub, I pretty much show to them, because just setting the scene of what some of these concepts are and getting us into a sort of frame of mind to understand what we're actually talking about when we talk about AI, I think can be done in watching this video for 15 minutes far more effectively than me trying to present it. But what we'll do is we'll watch this, and then I'm going to try and sort of dig a little bit into some concepts that, as Steve said, the hope is that it will leave you with some fundamentals that when you walk out of the door, even though you've all been using ChatGPT and you've been using these tools, it'll make you think just a little bit differently about how you use those tools and how you get more effective outcomes from them. So if you will, if you'll allow me, I'll turn the lights off. We'll watch this for 10, 15 minutes. Hopefully it'll be useful. And then I'll jump in and we're going to start to get hands-on.
Ever since computers were invented, they've really just been glorified calculators, machines that execute the exact instructions given to them by the programmers. But something incredible is happening now. Computers have started gaining the ability to learn and think and communicate, just like we do. They can do creative intellectual work that previously only humans could do. We call this technology generative AI, and you may have encountered it already through products like ChatGPT. Basically, intelligence is now available as a service, kind of like a giant brain floating in the sky that anyone can talk to. It's not perfect, but it is surprisingly capable, and it is improving at an exponential rate. This is a big deal. It's going to affect just about every person and company on the planet, positively or negatively. This video is here to help you understand what generative AI is all about, in practical terms, beyond the hype. The better you understand this technology as a person, team, or company, the better equipped you will be to survive and thrive in the age of AI. So here's a silly but useful mental model for this. You have Einstein in your basement. In fact, everyone does. And by Einstein, I really mean the combination of every smart person who ever lived. You can talk to Einstein whenever you want. He has instant access to the sum of all human knowledge and will answer anything you want within seconds, never running out of patience. He can also take on any role you want: a comedian, poet, doctor, coach, and will be an expert within that field. He has some human-like limitations though. He can make mistakes, he can jump to conclusions, he can misunderstand you. But the biggest limitation is actually your imagination and your ability to communicate effectively with him. This skill is known as prompt engineering, and in the age of AI, this is as essential as reading and writing. Most people vastly underestimate what this Einstein in your basement can do. It's like going to the real Einstein and asking him to proofread a high school report, or hiring a world-class 5-star chef and having him chop onions. The more you interact with Einstein, the more you will discover surprising and powerful ways for him to help you or your company. Okay, enough fluffy metaphors. Let's clarify some terms. AI, as you probably know, stands for artificial intelligence. AI is not new. Fields like machine learning and computer vision have been around for decades. Whenever you see a YouTube recommendation or a web search result, or whenever you get a credit card transaction approved, that's traditional AI in action. Generative AI is AI that generates new original content, rather than just finding or classifying existing content. That's the G in GPT, for example. Large language models, or LLMs, are a type of generative AI that can communicate using normal human language. ChatGPT is a product by the company OpenAI. It started as an LLM, essentially an advanced chatbot, using a new architecture called the transformer architecture, which, by the way, is the T in GPT. It is so fluent at human language that anyone can use it. You don't need to be an AI expert or programmer. And that's kind of what triggered the whole revolution. So how does it actually work? Well, a large language model is an artificial neural network, basically a bunch of numbers or parameters connected to each other, similar to how our brain is a bunch of neurons or brain cells connected to each other. Neural networks only deal with numbers. You send in numbers, and depending on how the parameters are set, other numbers come out. But any kind of content, such as text or images, can be represented as numbers. So let's say I write dogs are. When I send that to a large language model, that gets converted to numbers, processed by the neural network, and then the resulting numbers are converted back into text. In this case, the word animals. Dogs are animals. So yeah, this is basically a guess the next word machine. The interesting part is if we take that output and combine it with the input and send it through the model again, then it will continue adding new words. That's what's going on behind the scenes when you type something in ChatGPT. In this case, for example, it generated a whole story. And I can continue this indefinitely by adding more prompts. A large language model may have billions or even trillions of parameters. That's why they're called large. So how are all these numbers set? Well, not through manual programming. That would be impossible. But through training. Just like babies learning to speak, a baby isn't told how to speak. She doesn't get an instruction manual. Instead, she listens to people speaking around her. And when she's heard enough, she starts seeing the pattern. She speaks a few words at first, to the delight of her parents, and then later on, full sentences. Similarly, during a training period, the language model is fed a mind-boggling amount of text to learn from, mostly from internet sources. It then plays guess the next word with all of this over and over again, and the parameters are automatically tweaked until it starts getting really good at predicting the next word. This is called backpropagation, which is a fancy term for, oh, I guessed wrong, I better change something. However, to become truly useful, a model also needs to undergo human training. This is called reinforcement learning with human feedback, and it involves thousands of hours of humans painstakingly testing and evaluating output from the model and giving feedback. Kind of like training a dog with a clicker to reinforce good behavior. That's why a model like GPT won't tell you how to rob a bank. It knows very well how to rob a bank, but through human training, it has learned that it shouldn't help people commit crimes. When training is done, the model is mostly frozen, other than some fine-tuning that can happen later. That's what the P stands for in GPT, pre-trained. Although, in the future, we will probably have models that can learn continuously rather than just during training and fine-tuning. Now, although ChatGPT kind of got the ball rolling, GPT isn't the only model out there. In fact, new models are sprouting like mushrooms. They vary a lot in terms of speed, capability, and cost. Some can be downloaded and run locally, others are only online. Some are free or open source, others are commercial products. Some are super easy to use, while others require complicated technical setup. Some are specialized for certain use cases. Others are more general and can be used for almost anything. And some are baked into products in the form of co-pilots or chat windows. It's the Wild West. Just keep in mind that you generally get what you pay for. So with a free model, you may just be getting a smart high school student in your basement rather than Einstein. The difference between, for example, GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 is massive. Note that there are different types of generative AI models that generate different types of content. Text-to-text models, like GPT-4, take text as input and generate text as output. The text can be natural language, but it can also be structured information like code, JSON, or HTML. I use this a lot myself to generate code when programming. It saves an incredible amount of time, and I also learn a lot from the code it generates. Text-to-image models will generate images, describe what you want, and an image gets generated for you. You can even pick a style. Image-to-image models can do things like transforming or combining images. And we have image-to-text models, which describe the contents of a given image. And speech-to-text models create voice transcriptions, which is useful for things like meeting notes. Text-to-audio models, they generate music or sounds from a prompt. For example, here is some sound generated from the prompt, people talking in a busy restaurant. Okay guys, enough. Let's stop now. Thank you. And there are even text-to-video models that generate videos from a prompt. Sooner or later, we'll have infinite movie series that auto-generate the next episode tailored to your tastes as you're watching. Kind of scary if you think about it. One trend now is multimodal AI products, meaning they combine different models into one product. So you can work with text, images, audio, etc. without switching tools. The ChatGPT mobile app is a good example of this. Just for fun, I took a photo of this room and I asked where I could hide stuff. I kind of like that it mentioned the stove, but warned that it could get hot there. When I have things to figure out, such as the contents of this video, I like to take walks using ChatGPT as a sounding board. I start by saying, always respond with the word okay, unless I ask you for something. That way, it'll just listen and not interrupt. After I finish dumping my thoughts, I ask for feedback, we have some discussion, and then I ask it to summarize in text afterwards. I really recommend trying this. It's a really useful way to use tools like this. Turns out Einstein isn't stuck in the basement after all. You can take him out for a walk. Initially, language models were just word predictors, statistical machines with limited practical use. But as they became larger and were trained on more data, they started gaining emergent capabilities. Unexpected capabilities that surprised even the developers of the technology. They could roleplay, write poetry, write high-quality code, discuss company strategy, provide legal and medical advice, coach, teach. Basically, creative and intellectual things that only humans could do previously. It turns out that when a model has seen enough text and images, it starts to see patterns and understand higher level concepts, just like a baby learning to understand the world. Let's take a simple example. I'll give GPT-4 this little drawing that involves a string, a pair of scissors, an egg, a pot, and a fire. What will happen if I use the scissors? The model has most likely not been trained on this exact scenario, yet it gave a pretty good answer, which demonstrates a basic understanding of the nature of scissors, eggs, gravity, and heat. When GPT-4 was released, I started using it as a coding assistant, and I was blown away. When prompted effectively, it was a better programmer than anyone I've worked with. Same with article writing, product design, workshop planning, and just about anything I used it for. The main bottleneck was my prompt engineering skills. So I decided to make a career shift and focus entirely on learning and teaching how to make this technology useful. Hence, this video. Now let's take a step back and look at the implications. For 300,000 years or so, we Homo sapiens have been the most intelligent species on Earth, depending of course on how you define intelligence. But the thing is, our intellectual capabilities aren't really improving that much. Our brains are about the same size, same weight as they've been for thousands of years. Computers, on the other hand, have been around for only 80 years or so. And now with generative AI, they are suddenly capable of speaking human languages fluently and carrying out an increasing number of intellectual creative tasks that previously only humans could do. So we are right here at the crossing point where AI is better at some things and humans are better at some things. But AI's capabilities are improving at an exponential rate while ours aren't. We don't know how long that exponential improvement will continue or if it will level off at some point, but we're definitely entering a new world order. Now, this isn't the first revolution we've experienced. We tamed fire. We learned how to do agriculture. We invented the printing press, steam power, telegraph. These were all revolutionary changes, but they took decades or centuries to become widespread. In the AI revolution, new technology spreads worldwide almost instantly. Dealing with this rate of change is a huge challenge for both individuals and companies. I've noticed that people and companies tend to fall into different kind of mindset categories when it comes to AI. On one side, we have denial. the belief that AI cannot do my job, or we don't have time to look into this technology. This is a dangerous place to be. A common saying is, AI might not take your job, but people using AI will. And this is true for both individuals and companies. On the other side of the scale, we have panic and despair, the belief that AI is going to take my job no matter what, AI is going to make my company go bankrupt. Neither of these mindsets are helpful. So I propose a middle ground, a balanced, positive mindset. AI is going to make me, my team, my company, insanely productive. Personally, with this mindset, I feel like I've gained superpowers. I can go from idea to result in so much shorter time. I can focus more on what I want to achieve and less on the grunt work of building things. And I'm learning a lot faster too. It's like having an awesome mentor with me at all times. This mindset not only feels good, but it also equips you for the future. It makes you less likely to lose your job or your company and more likely to thrive in the age of AI despite all the uncertainty. So one important question is human role X needed in the age of AI? For example, are doctors needed, developers, lawyers, CEOs, whatever? So this question becomes more and more relevant as the AI capabilities improve. Well, some jobs will disappear for sure. But for most roles, I think we humans are still needed. Someone with domain knowledge still needs to decide what to ask the AI, how to formulate the prompt, what context needs to be provided, and how to evaluate the result. AI models aren't perfect. They can be absolutely brilliant sometimes, but sometimes also terribly stupid. They can sometimes hallucinate and provide bogus information in a very convincing way. So when should you trust the AI response? When should you double check or do the work yourself? What about legal compliance, data security? What information can we send to an AI model and where is that data stored? A human expert is needed to make these judgment calls and compensate for the weaknesses of the AI model. So I recommend thinking of AI as your colleague, a genius, but also an oddball with some personal quirks that you need to learn to work with. You need to recognize when your genius colleague is drunk. As a doctor, my AI colleague can help diagnose rare diseases that I didn't even know existed. As a lawyer, my AI colleague could do legal research and review contracts, allowing me to spend more time with my client. Or as a teacher, my AI colleague could grade tests, help generate course content, provide individual support to students, etc. And if you're not sure how I can help you, just ask it. I work as X. How can you help me? Overall, I find that the combination of human plus AI, that's where the magic lies. It's important to distinguish between the models and the products that build on top of them. As a user, you don't normally interact with the model directly. Instead, you interact with a product website or a mobile app, which in turn talks to the model behind the scenes. Products provide a user interface and add capabilities and data that aren't part of the model itself. For example, the ChatGPT product keeps track of your message history, while the GPT-4 model itself doesn't have any message history. As a developer, you can use these models to build your own AI-powered products and features. For example, let's say you have an e-learning site. You could add a chatbot to answer questions about the courses. Or as a recruitment company, you might build AI-powered tools to help evaluate candidates. In both these cases, your users interact with your product, and then your product interacts with the model. This is done via APIs or application programming interfaces, which allow your code to talk to the model. So here's a simple example of using OpenAI.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. I hope that was helpful. That video, feel free to share it with whoever you like. It's in this deck. I wanted to he made that video in January last year. So, you know, we're almost two years hence. Quite a few things have remained consistent. Quite a few things have changed. He was blown away by GPT-4. We had GPT 5.1 released this morning. And one of the things that he talked a lot about there was prompt engineering. And if you were in Cohort 1, we spent a lot of time talking about prompt engineering, this art or this craft of giving instructions to the AI. We've evolved that idea as the models have got more intelligent and more capable to this concept of context engineering. So I want to just talk a little bit about that and hopefully give you some useful ways of thinking about that. Now, when Henrik was talking about how these things are trained, do you remember this exercise as a kid? Where you had to basically guess the word. Now, you can imagine, if you took every single sentence on the internet and you did what's called masked a word, and you fed that to an algorithm, a model, and rewarded rewarded it for each time it correctly guessed the missing word, and you did that for an unfathomable amount of computation, the thing would start to get very good at guessing the next word. And the reason I'm sort of emphasizing this is because that is still what these things do. Their job, their architecture, their physics, everything about them is that they predict the next word or the next token. And I just want to talk about how they do that. So I'm going to quickly show you a quick example here. I'm going to jump into ChatGPT. I'm going to make a poem about a dog that goes to the moon. Okay, we have a nice little poem from ChatGPT. Now what was happening in the background there? Let me show you. Make a poem about a dog that goes to the moon. So let's just have a little look at what's going on here. This is called a tokenizing. The very first thing that happens when you put a message into the chat box or you send a message to an LLM is that it gets tokenized. It's the reason that we called our overall program very geekily Tokenizer. And what is actually happening there is that each of the words, so you can see we have two different messages. We have a system message, which generally is sort of hidden away, you don't see that. And then we have the user message, make a poem about a dog that goes to the moon. What that looks like is these are the tokens, okay? You can see that there's a little token that indicates the start of a system message and the end of a system message. And you can see there's a token that shows the start of a user message and the end of a user message. But this is the important thing. Each one of those words, each one of these tokens can be represented as a number. Once we represent things as a number, we can perform mathematics on them. So what happens is, in the answer that ChatGPT gave me for make a poem about a dog that goes to the moon, all that was happening was that tokens, numbers, were being added to the end of this as the predicted token. So this was going into a mathematical calculation to figure out what the next number was. The way that works is very, very complex. I've got another video that I could show you. And think of it as there are many candidates for what the next token might be, but there's one that has the highest probability. And the one that has the highest probability comes in here as the next token. And then this entire sequence of numbers gets fed back in every single time. Let's do the quick exercise. So we're going to do a poem about a dog that goes to the moon. We're going to start with, why don't we start with Marilyn? Once.
A.
Okay, so the way this is going to work is I'm going to start once. You're going to repeat my word, then you're going to go to the next word, and then you're going to guess the next word. You're going to repeat those words and so on.
Okay.
Once.
Once a.
Once a dog.
Once a dog went. Once a dog went to.
Once a dog went to the.
Once a dog went to the park.
All right. So what you can see is if we just started with the, and we said please complete the poem, and we just started with the, you would have no idea what the poem would be around. Right? You'd have absolutely no way of knowing what a logical next word would be. It is only by feeding in the previous words that you were able to then come up with a sensible next word. Okay, so the exact same thing is going on here, is that every single time you see a word pop up in a ChatGPT answer, what is happening is that entire sequence of tokens is being fed into that big, big brain, and it's calculating what the next token should be each time. So every single time, even if you were to drag a big document in there, that entire document is being fed in to produce each new token, which is why there's a massively compute-intensive exercise called inference. We're inferring what the next token should be, which is why you're hearing about these companies raising trillions of dollars to put data centers up and nuclear power and so forth, because you can imagine to produce an accurate prediction of every single token here is a massively expensive computing exercise to do. Any questions on that? There's a hell of a lot in that, and I'm not explaining it particularly well, but I think you get the idea that the output, this next token, the accuracy of the next token that gets predicted here is a function of the previous tokens. Okay, that's the most important thing to understand, which is kind of the age-old principle of garbage in, garbage out. So if we're putting garbage in, what can it predict? It can only predict garbage out the other end. On the other hand, if we put really good tokens in, it's going to give us really good tokens out the other end. That's the key thing that I wanted to explain. So let's just quickly look at how this works. So we have this thing called a context window. That's effectively the working memory of a large language model. When we jump on ChatGPT, we type in, write me a poem about a dog that goes to the moon. We just saw our little tokens. I showed you how they get turned from words into numbers. They get fed to the big brain. The big brain, which is the GPT model, GPT 5.1 in this case, let's say, which has these trillions of parameters, which Henrik explained to us, trained on that many, many examples of masked sentences and words. And then what it's doing out the other end is predicting the next token, feeding the entire sequence, including that new token in again, predicting the next token, feeding that entire sequence plus that token in, predicting the next token, and so on and so forth. Got that? We then respond, feeds all of this in. So we have a new question now, make it about a cat. Going to feed all of that in again for that token, that token, that token, and so we go. This happens through the course of the conversation that we have with ChatGPT. And at this point, really what it's using is its language ability, its incredible ability to correctly predict tokens that from a linguistic perspective make sense in sequence. And it's also using its general knowledge, having trained it on the entire contents of the internet, that it understands the concept of a dog going to the moon, space programs, all that sort of stuff, gravity, blah, 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 and can come up with a sensible set of predictions here to produce something out the other end. As we do this, we use up the working memory of the large language model. And what you find is after these very long conversations, you will often start to forget what we started with at the beginning of the conversation. Because what's happening is we're effectively running out of its working memory, and the tokens that we put in at the beginning are starting to fall outside of the window. So a good practice here is start a new chat when you're doing something. If it's a new idea or new concept, any sort of new impetus, start a new chat. Avoid sort of mixing different ideas, unrelated ideas in a single chat. Of course, this tech is getting better and better and better, and they're working out ways to manage the memory. But in general, a good concept is, a good lesson is start new chats. It's not more or less expensive to do so. They're getting better at allowing you to search through your chats and so forth. And I've just explained to you the reason for doing that. So you can just imagine, again, just to illustrate why that makes sense, is if we started talking about our marketing plan here, and then we started introducing something totally different about, picking up Jimmy from school on Thursday, we're feeding in all these previous tokens here that have absolutely nothing to do with picking up Jimmy from school on Thursday. Get it? So we rather just want to have separate conversations where the tokens are relevant to that particular conversation, rather than mixing things that are totally... You can imagine how hard it is for this brain to figure out, hang on a second, previously he was talking about the marketing plan for the business, now he's talking about how he organizes to go and pick up the kids from school. How do I make sensible predictions of the next token from that? The next concept I want to take you through is grounding. At the moment, everything we've talked about, all we're really using of the AI is its incredible language ability and knowledge. But as I've explained to you, it's able to predict the next tokens, but that's all it's doing, it's predicting the tokens. We can't really rely on the factual accuracy of the tokens that it's predicting, because all it's doing is predicting tokens. These models are getting better and better and better and more reliable in terms of their output, but it's not like it's looking up in a factual encyclopedia and giving you sort of absolutely reliable answers on all the things that you're asking, because all it's doing is predicting tokens. That's a very important nuance point. So the evolution of this has been that, you know, in the early days of using these things, we could use their language and we could use their general knowledge, but they weren't that reliable. So the really exciting thing that happened was that an emergent property over the last couple of years has been that if you said to these large language models, I'm asking you a certain question, and let's assume your training cutoff date, in other words, the index of the internet that we're giving you to train on, finished in January 2025, and I'm now asking you about, let's say, what's happened in the last couple of months? Let's say the G20 meeting of world leaders that's happening in South Africa in November, just as an example. And I'm giving you the option to search the web if you don't know that. Just say to me, I don't know, I'd like to search the web. We found that this emergent property was that if you said to it, you have the ability to search the web, it would come back and say, yes, I don't know that information, I'd like to search the web. So what that meant was, we could start to say to the large language model, in addition to the prompts that we were giving it, we could say to it, you also have some tools available. If you would like to use these tools, for example, the ability to read a file or search the web, you can do so. Just send us a signal in your response saying, I would like to search the web or I'd like to read a file. And then our software will enable you to read a file. So if you remember, one of the key things we were able to do with ChatGPT over the last year or so is you could click on the little plus button and you could start to connect files into ChatGPT. So you could start to, you know, drag and drop a document or connect to your Google Drive or your OneDrive or whatever it is. And now you're able to give it information that you could ask questions of rather than it relying only on the information that it's been trained on. And it could do so because if you said to it, I need some help with writing up a marketing plan, and it's told that it has this ability to read files, and it's told that it has access to your Google Drive, it can come back and say, the person's asking me to help them with their marketing plan. I know nothing about their marketing plan, but they've said that I've got the ability to connect to their Google Drive and that I can read files. I'm going to basically send a message back to them saying, or send a message back to the software saying, I would like to use those tools. And that's really what an agent is. You hear all this talk about an agent. It's this thing using tools. Does that make sense? So now we're taking information that we have, knowledge files, let's say from our organization, turning those into tokens, injecting them into the token sequence here. Now when we ask questions about our marketing plan, rather than just making stuff up from what it's been trained on the internet, it's able to actually use these tokens in the predictions that it makes in its responses to us. Does that make sense? It's a huge difference. So now this is what we call grounding. It's grounding its responses in the documents or the knowledge that we've provided. Of course, we then added web search, which you should be using all the time now. We're going to use it in a second in an exercise. And what that's going to do is when we say, we ask it something that clearly it's smart enough to now know that it needs to search the web for that. So, you know, what's the weather in Noosa today? It knows that it's smart now. It knows that it doesn't have information in its training data that can tell it what the weather is right now at, you know, 10:30 on a Thursday. But it knows that it has a web search tool. So it will basically send some information saying, I want to search the web. Here's my web search query. We can then take that response, fire off, use normal software, fire off a web search, get the web search responses back, give the responses back to it and say, here's what we found on the web. And it will then answer us and say, it's 22 degrees, et cetera, et cetera. And that's basically what an agent is. And that's, when we see it using the web, it's going, getting information, hopefully reliable information, bringing that back, injecting the tokens in, and using those tokens in its next prediction. over the last year, what we started to see is this thing called reasoning. So imagine if you could also then train these models. Henrik talked about pre-training, he talked about reinforcement learning. Another thing that you can do is imagine training them not just on sort of mathematical exams and things that people had written, and here's the question and here's the answer, but you also trained them on, here's the question. Remember when you did math, the teacher wanted you to show your working, and you had to show, this is how I got to my answer. Imagine if we increasingly gave it not just here's the input and here's the output, but here's the input, here's the working, here's the output. What it could now do is use reasoning when we ask it more complex questions, which you'll now see when you use ChatGPT. Sometimes it just gives you an instant answer, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer and it's thinking. And what that's doing is generating another series of tokens here, which is basically working through the problem, and then those tokens get injected into the sequence, and now its answers are not just based, you can imagine, if it just answered you straight from here, the answer will be different to if it has taken some time to generate tokens that sort of reason through the problem. So that's what's happening with reasoning, which has made these things even smarter. And then we're starting to see more complex agents, and one that I encourage you all to play with if you haven't is a free feature within ChatGPT called Deep Research. This is like having your own data agency available to you for basically included in your $20 a month that you're paying for ChatGPT, where you could say to it something like, take your industry, let's say vehicles for dealing with disaster scenarios, and you could say, I want you to go and do a comprehensive market study of all of the organizations in the Southern Hemisphere that offer products in this particular category. That's a very high-level brief. It's not the kind of brief you would give an agency. The agency would come back to you and say, look, you're about to pay us 20 grand to do this. We need a bit more information, otherwise you're going to get a dud answer from us. So it's going to come back to you, ask 3 or 4 clarifying questions. You'll give it that information. And then what it's basically going to go and do is what we call asynchronously, rather than just answering you back straight away. It's going to go off for a period of, could be 5 minutes, could be 15, 20 minutes. Going to run many, many searches each time, thinking about what are the sort of searches that I should use given this brief to find information from the web that would inform my final answer. It's going to run lots of searches. It's going to bring back the responses from those searches, inject the tokens in, and eventually it's going to produce a comprehensive report for you out the other end that you can download as a PDF. Very, very powerful, but that's really what's going on. Running lots of searches and injecting reliable context or tokens into the sequence. And at the end, when it actually writes a report, it's using all of that input and predicting a series of tokens out the other end in the form of a report. So you can kind of get how this connects back to what I talked about earlier about the future of work, where increasingly our job is going to become making sure, at a very technical sense, that we harness this incredible intelligence that we now have, that is effectively a commodity available to us for, pennies. How do we harness it? Well, what we really need to get good at is organizing our knowledge, organizing the context, so that we can expose that to this incredible intelligence that literally just gets better week on week or month on month on month. So increasingly we can rely on it to do the artifact production for us. So much of what we're going to learn in this program and what you're going to hear over and over from me is this idea of context engineering. And context engineering is about how do we make sure that the knowledge that we have as an organization, which is really our kind of like our currency as an org, how do we make sure that that knowledge can be exposed, that we can give access to this intelligence, give it access to our knowledge, so that it can help us? Because that's pretty much the limiting factor in all of our organizations. If we want to grow, or if we want to run our businesses more sustainably from a profitability perspective, if we surveyed you guys, you would all say, we could grow if, and it really would come down to an intelligence issue. It'd be like if we were able to hire 2 more marketing managers that could do, run really fantastic marketing campaigns for us in social, or if we could hire another design engineer or whatever it might be, fundamentally the constraint to you growing or running your business more sustainably is an intelligence constraint. So the thing that we need to do is we need to figure out how do we take all the knowledge that we have as an organization. The team that we have are effectively people we pulled together because they had special knowledge. And we take their special knowledge and we turn it into products and services that solve problems for our customers. That generates revenue, and now we have a business. But the thing that it starts with is this team of people who have knowledge. We now have a technology that enables us to, one, harness that knowledge in ways that we've never been able to, and two, capture that knowledge. Think of the ability to now record a meeting, record any conversation, and turn that into intelligence or turn that into knowledge. We were never really able to do that before. Now we can do that. But it means quite a different way of operating. It means that we start to really understand that what it is that we do as an organization is we harness knowledge, we apply intelligence to it, and that turns into products and services that we offer to our customers. So these are the three things that we're going to talk about over and over. Because an AI agent, given knowledge, given skills of how to use tools, and given the tools that enable it to produce artifacts, so a tool that can, for example, connect into Xero to do stuff for us, or a tool that can connect into our reporting system and pull out data, but then also the skills that this is how we do our reports, this is how we do our presentations, this is how our business operates. And the knowledge, which is all of that tacit, implicit, and actual knowledge in the form of documents, conversations, and so forth, we've just got to get super good at capturing that knowledge and getting it into a situation where we can expose intelligence to, or expose it to intelligence. Okay, let's do a quick, let's do something. Everyone must be getting bored out of their minds. All right, 10:36. Let's see if we can put some of these things into practice quickly. So if you can pull out your laptops, we're going to try and do a little exercise. Okay, I'll throw up the Wi-Fi quickly. Anyone doesn't have it? Bottom left on my slides as well. And the concepts I'm going to try and look, I haven't had the time to go around the room and gauge where everyone's AI literacy is at, and I'm sure it's not zero. But hopefully there'll be one or two things here that are useful that you can take away. So let's jump into ChatGPT in one tab in our browser. Anyone not using ChatGPT and instead using, say, Claude or another AI? Which is yours? Claude, that's good.
Grok
Grok?
is menus,
Menus.
MANUS.
Manus. Okay. Do you have access to ChatGPT?
I do.
You do. Okay, let's jump on ChatGPT. Most of these things are getting to the point where they've got feature parity, but there might be some parts of this that are not going to work for you if you don't have access to ChatGPT or Claude. I also want you to open up LinkedIn in a separate tab. Go to your. I'm sorry to do this to you. I don't want you to get the impression that I'm in any way endorsing LinkedIn. It is a hell site that I prefer to remain off, and we all know we have to go on there occasionally, right? So just treat this as one of those occasions where we have to go on there. Okay, go to your own profile, which you can do by clicking on your avatar.
And if you don't have one, go to Chris's.
One of the great works of fiction. And on your profile page, you should see something like this. It might say resources, or it might give you a ... menu. And what I want you to do is click on this button here that says save to PDF. And what that's going to do is it's going to save your LinkedIn profile in a nice little CV format to your computer as a PDF. Okay, once you've done that, we're going back into ChatGPT. And for those of you that haven't used this feature, let me just kind of preview what we're going to do here. You may have already done this, so in which case, pretend to follow along, but you'll just go, oh, I know this. If you click on your profile, bottom left in ChatGPT, you'll see there's an option here called personalization. Now, if you think back to what I showed you about tokens and token prediction, one way that would be quite nice is if we could get ChatGPT to include every single time it gives us an answer, some tokens that tell it a little bit about ourselves, our business, and what we do, so we don't have to tell it that in every single conversation that we have. And that's what this personalization setting allows you to do. If you click on it, you'll see there are a few different form fields here. There's name, occupation, and more about you, okay? So I'll come to why I got you to download your PDF in a second, but I'm going to demonstrate another feature just as a bonus as part of this. So under projects, we're going to click on new project. I think in Grok and Claude, you have similar things available to you. You have a project. So click on project, and let's just call this me, this particular project. It's going to create a project for you. And a project is basically, you could think of it almost like a mini specialized assistant where we're going to give it some specific context so that when we use this project, it has, we know that it has certain context, and we can come back to this time and again with the knowledge that it has certain information that we've previously provided to it and certain instructions. So there's two pieces to this. Once you've created the Me project, if you click on Add Files and pull in that LinkedIn profile that you just downloaded, you should see something like that. Claude's got projects. Grok, I think who's using Grok? Yeah, Grok's got projects too.
Can I just get the Wi-Fi password?
Yep.
Is the Wi-Fi? Yeah. Oh, so just flick back to that, Chris. There's Wi-Fi.
Okay, so we've created a project called Me. We've downloaded our LinkedIn profile, if not someone else's, and we've dragged it into the Add Files modal that popped up here. Effectively, what we've done is we've given the LLM some information about us. The next thing we're going to do is on the top right here, you'll see the ... menu. What we want to do is add some specific instructions here. So, so ... menu, top right. Just show you again. Add instructions. Okay, and I'm going to just put some instructions here, which is basically you are an agent that has information about me, and your job is to answer questions and assist me with, yeah, something along these lines. We're basically telling it that it's kind of like the agent or assistant that has access to information about me. We're going to start with our profile, but coming out of this session, you might want to go and add other things that you think are relevant. For example, for me, I added stuff like my job description, my sort of performance framework and so forth, so that I could always go to it and say, hey, Remind me what I'm supposed to be doing. And your job is to answer questions and assist me with info about myself. Okay. It's just a demo. You can always come back and tweak that anytime. We're going to start with just one file, but one can add any files that you like here. Okay, now, the first task we're going to give this thing is well, let me just continue with a little tour here, if you haven't used projects, just to show you some of the other interesting parts of this. You can actually connect a whole bunch of different things and use different capabilities of ChatGPT from within this project. For example, you can give it access to files in your Google Drive. You can give it access to web search, Canvas, and so forth. Okay, let's start with the first little exercise here. Here's what we're going to type. I need a 400-word short bio on myself that I can give to an AI assistant so that it has better context about me and can help me. Okay? Something along those lines. The 400-word part being the important bit because we're going to use what this produces in our ChatGPT personalization step. We're just going to copy and paste the outcome here. Okay? And the other thing I'm going to do is, it might also be helpful for you to check my website or my org website so you know what we do. And I'm going to put the website in here. So what we've done is we've given it a file to work with, and by giving it that file and uploading that, that file is sort of added to a library within this project that is always going to be available in this particular project. We added an instruction which basically told it that it's our assistant and it's got to help us. And then we're giving it a specific prompt here for a little job that we want it to do. And in this job, in this prompt, we've focused on what the output is that we want. We've been quite specific. It's a 400-word short bio on myself that I can give to an AI assistant so it can help me. And it might also be helpful for you to check my org's website so you know what we do, and I've given it the website. Okay, so we already know what's going to happen here. We know that, as I explained before, rather than just giving us an answer out of its incredible brain, it's going to use tools. It's going to use a tool to read this file. It's going to use a tool to search the web and read this website, probably multiple pages. It's going to get those tokens from this file and from the website and the web pages that it reads. It's going to feed that in. After it's fed in, you can imagine the starting sequence will be the instruction we gave. You are a blah, 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 blah. You help me. And then it's going to probably put this in after that, these tokens. And then it's going to inject the tokens from this file. And then it's going to inject the tokens from the website. And then it's going to predict the 400-word bio out the other end. Does that make sense? So what we are doing here is we're context engineering. We're giving it the context. Let's see what it does. So let's just see what's happening here. So it's thinking, searching the project files. Here's a draft. Chris is director of the Peregian Digital Hub, located in Peregian Beach, New South Queensland, where he leads a world-class environment for blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now it's also going into my background and my LinkedIn profile and the jobs that I previously did. And it's producing, hopefully, a 400-word summary. Looks a little bit longer, but let me just quickly check it. The one thing it's not very good at actually is word count. Let me just quickly count these words. And generally what I would do is, no, please make it 20% shorter, or I'll just iterate with it. Or I'll God forbid, I need to hand edit some text. How on earth will I do that in a world where I've totally forgotten how to do that? So how many words do we? 378 words. Did very well. Okay, 378 words. So now that I have that, and hopefully you've also got that, you'll see here quite a handy little thing which gives me some trust in its answer. This is called a citation. So a citation meaning it hasn't just made this up, it's got this information from the website. If I were to click on that, it'll show me that it got that from the website. And the rest of it it's got from my fantastic work of fiction, my LinkedIn profile. And now, the next thing I want to show you is at the bottom here, we could just copy and paste this, but there's this little icon down here which will copy this entire block of text for me onto my clipboard. So if I click on that, you can also see here it tells me the sources that it used. And you can see here which source it used. So I've copied that. Go back to personalization here in ChatGPT and personalize your ChatGPT if you haven't already done that. Put your nickname in there or your name. Put your occupation. For mine, I actually also add the website, because these things are getting smart. If it reads that this is who I work for and here's the website, it might, when it needs to, just go and search the website for more information. So I'd encourage you to do that. And then you can copy and paste the about me into, you might just need a few little tweaks to get it down to the right length. I thought it was 400 words. It's 4,000 characters. So you might just say to it, make it a little bit shorter if it's not letting you put that in there. You can see I'm getting this little red box around mine. I think I've got it wrong as to how many words it allows you in there.
I think when you hit the little clipboard thing, it copies the whole chat.
Yeah, you get rid of you top and tail that, because you don't want all the stuff that it added at the end. Let me just see. It's going to take the red box away from me. Yeah, I might have got the 400 words wrong, sorry. So we'll just go back to it and say
That's 1,500 characters.
1,500 characters. Okay, so let's go back, sorry. Let's just say to it in a follow-up. Let's just say, please make it no more than 1,500 characters. And it should just do a nice, quick, shorter job of it. There we go. Worked that time. And then what will happen is, if you then save that personalization that you just added, from now on, every conversation you have with ChatGPT injects those tokens right at the beginning of the conversation. So just to sort of illustrate that, if we just go back to our little thing that we were looking at earlier here. Now when we're asking it questions, before we even start our question here, what we don't see, pre-appended to it, are the tokens in that personalization section. I am Chris Boden, blah, 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 this is what I do, etc. So now you can imagine we're adding valuable context in here. So when we ask it something, it's not clueless about who we are. The tokens it predicts at the other end are going to use these other tokens that we just put into it by giving it that bio and some of that personalization. And if you're more familiar with how ChatGPT and these other products work, they're increasingly trying to make that easier for us with things like memories and so on. I personally don't like the memory thing. I like to be in more control about what goes into my context here, so I generally switch the memory thing off. But you'll see from time to time, you'll say, no, I don't like that. I like to answer in the first person or something like that. And you'll see what it'll do is it'll add that as a memory. Think of the memories as part of what gets pre-painted in here. So that not only will you have your bio and your nickname and all that kind of stuff, but it'll also have some short memories that go in here. So that now when you ask questions, it can incorporate those tokens into its answers.
How do you turn the memory thing off? Because mine pulled in all of my previous chats about meal plans for training.
Okay, let me show you a couple of things there. So I think some important settings that you might all want to have a look at. Again, it'll be a little bit different in Claude and Grok. Some important ones, particularly around data controls. If you have this improve the model for everyone as on, switch that off. If you've got a paid account, it should be off by default. You have other controls here like exporting your data, deleting all previous chats, etc. So if you're ever looking for data controls and you have some concerns around that, that's under data controls. Ryan will tell you that we should all have multi-factor authentication on here. So multi-factor authentication can be switched on top right here. I just turned mine off for this session. No, I didn't. I need to put it on. And that will use, if you're using the Authenticator app, it just gets added as another item in the Authenticator app. Why is that important? You think of some of the conversations you're having with these things now, right? All sorts of stuff probably that you shouldn't be having conversations about. You don't really want other people to get access to that. So MFA, just like you don't want anyone getting access to your email, treat it in the same way. Let's go to
There's some memory and personalisation as well.
Okay, yeah, that might be where it is.
It's down there.
Yeah, memory. You can see here mine is toggled off. I think it's on by default. So I've toggled my memories off. I'm not saying you should do that, but that's just my own personal preference. And then one more thing I want to show you is if I start a fresh chat, you'll see this little button up on the top right hand side here when you have a fresh blank chat called turn on temporary chat. And basically what that's going to do, it's like an incognito browser session. So meaning it won't use memories and other personalization things that you've set up in there. So if you ever wanted to have, if you think of it like this, if you didn't want it to include all of those tokens about you, etc., and you just wanted it to, because let's say you've got a situation where you don't want it to bias the answer based on what it knows about you or whatever, you would do a temporary chat. So if I click on that, you can see it looks a little bit different. If I say, who am I? Let's see if it knows. There's something that it doesn't include in there. I think it's memories and yeah.
Recent searches.
Yeah, I'm going to report that. Okay, 10:57. What else did I want to show you? Okay, here's the last thing I want to show you, which I think is unbelievably powerful. And if we don't get to this in the next few sessions, this is a gift that will keep on giving. When we add a project, as we just did there, and one can imagine, I just gave it my LinkedIn profile, create one called Team, go and download the LinkedIn profiles for your whole team, chuck them in there. This is where it really gets interesting with projects, is on the mobile app. So, firing up the ChatGPT mobile app, of course the stuff is all synced to the cloud. So that project that I just created, let me see if I can quickly airplay this and show you. I might just have to jump on the other network. Continue. In 1 sec. This will be worthwhile showing you. Where is it? It's a Tamarind room. Okay. watch this. So, I created the project called Me. Okay, you can see it. If I go into it, it's got that information. And now, advanced voice mode on ChatGPT mobile app is one of the most amazing things that is going to change your life. Why? Because if you created some projects, put some context in there, you could go and get in your car. Who's got CarPlay in their car? Everyone's got CarPlay in their car. And you can basically, on the drive back to work, have done an hour of really productive work. Go for a walk in the morning, an hour of really productive work. Let me show you why. Hey, how you going?
Hey there. I'm doing great and ready to help out. Just let me know what you need and we'll dive in.
How are you going to help me?
Basically, I'll...
Say again? Hello? Don't fail me now.
Going for
Let
coffee.
me just make sure that I'm in the project, into my Me project. Hey, what do you know about me?
Well, it looks like I actually don't have any personal info about you on hand right now. If you want me to know more or help you with something specific, just let me know.
I want you to help me. I thought you were going to be my personal assistant and you had access to my LinkedIn profile and stuff like that, don't you?
I get it. So, basically, I can absolutely...
You're lying to me. It's lying to me. This is a terrible demo. I'm telling you, it works.
We believe you.
What information do you have about me?
Absolutely, I can help with that. I do have a bit of context from what I found. For example, I know you've got a pretty fascinating background in the tech world. You're the director of the Peregian Digital Hub over in Noosa, and you've...
All right. I just want to know, have you got access to, tell me the specific instructions that I gave you about what I want you to do.
Sure. So basically, you've set it up so that my job is to help you by using any information you've provided in your project files whenever it's relevant. So if you ask me something that might be in those files, I'll go look it up and then just chat with you naturally about it. In short...
Have a look in the files and tell me what that file actually is, please.
Absolutely, I can fill you in on that. So from what I found, that file is basically a detailed profile about you. It's got your professional background, some of your career journey from your startup days to leading the Peregian Digital Hub, and
That's good. How do you think, like, what useful things could we do together on a 40-minute drive?
Ooh, a 40-minute drive is a nice little pocket of time to do something productive or fun. We could brainstorm ideas for a project you've got going on, or I could tell you a bit about any new tech trends that might be relevant to you. Or if you just want to chill, we could pick a podcast or some interesting stuff.
That is incredibly, incredibly powerful. So let's just say you've given it a bunch of context. You can have that kind of a conversation with it. It was a bit silly in the beginning there, but believe me, it does work. And I think the pattern that is proving to be incredibly powerful for me is every conversation you have now, work-related conversation, has to be recorded, both in person and a video call. And when you're having a conversation with a colleague, let's say, pull out your phone. If it's relevant in a given context and you create a project for it, let's say marketing, logistics, whatever it might be, jump into that project. And I'm going to do a quick demonstration with Ryan here, okay? I'm going to not do it in my Me project, I'm just going to do it in a general chat. And I'm just going to show you what I mean. So this is just not a project, we're just going to do a normal chat. Hey ChatGPT.
Hey there.
How you going?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking.
I just want you to acknowledge which is okay, no long answers. Now, I am having a conversation with my friend Ryan Smith, and the object of this conversation is that I want you to basically be our note taker, and we're going to discuss some highlights of 2025, and at the end of that, we want you to kind of put together a one-page, two-page for each of us, and if you see the conversation sort of goes quiet, I want you to prompt with a question that'll help elicit information of our 2025 personal highlights for 2025. You got that?
Absolutely. Got it. I'll keep it nice and short. I'll be your note taker.
Sure, just say, okay, we'll go.
Got it.
Okay, so for me, the highlight of 2025 is that we have made it through, and we have run some pretty cool AI-related programs, including the one that I'm talking to you from right now, which is called Uplift. You can always go and have a look at our website and get more information about that when you write out the summary. I just came back from a really nice 4-week holiday. That was really the highlight of the year so far. I've met tons of interesting people, business owners, leaders, innovators, and so forth through these programs. And we have also had a bunch of kids programs here at the Hub, and seeing how they are getting excited about using AI to bring their ideas to life has been absolutely awesome. You got that?
Absolutely. Understood.
How about you?
Hi,
Okay.
2025 has been an interesting journey so far. I've had some wins on a personal front. We've built a house and moved in Boden. A few of our kids have had some excellent results in the sports fields. Our middle child is now a rep basketballer for the Sunshine Coast. We've started up a consultancy business. We've streamlined all of our internal operations at home. We now use ChatGPT to run our recipe, meal planning, grocery lists, and optimize for costs, and have brought that really down a huge amount. We've also used ChatGPT this year to run our first Easter egg hunt. We took photos of hiding places, and ChatGPT suggested a whole poem and cute clue list that the kids found very useful.
Got that?
Okay. Got it.
All right, cool. That's awesome. I now want you to write up a 1-pager for each of us under the heading Chris Boden, and then under the heading Ryan Smith, and we'll use that to share with our stakeholders.
Absolutely. Okay, let me summarize that for you both.
I don't summarize it, just do the work, thank you.
Sure thing. Okay.
Now, normally what I would do is I would stop. You can see I've stopped that, and I'll say, so every part of the conversation that we had there, you can see was captured. Okay? So very reliable speech to text. And I can say, please write up a 1-pager for each of us. Okay, that's going to go and do that. Now, the point that I'm making to you here, how many times do you go into a meeting and it's a waste of time meeting? It's a waste of time meeting. Why? Because all the good stuff that was discussed in that meeting or that conversation gets washed up on the rocks of not following up. Okay, why don't we follow up? Because it's massive, as we call it, PT, massive physical training to just like follow up the meeting that you just had. So the discipline to get into is not just recording the meeting, I think, is actually to go spare the last 5 minutes in that meeting to tell the AI assistant to produce the artifacts that are going to actually move that conversation forward. Because if it's just the meeting notes and they go into the knowledge base, that's absolutely fantastic. You all get a gold star. But if you get the thing to produce the artifact, if it's like an elevator pitch so you can pitch the idea to your staff, or it's a 1-pager so you can send that to stakeholders, get it to do that step so that you've got that bit and that meeting turns into a useful artifact that you can then take to the next step. So that little thing of giving it the context within a project, now it knows about you, now you've created a project with files and documentation, and now you've got that, you heard it, like that is pretty amazing how snappy, how well it follows the instructions. It's getting better and better every single day. That just, this is a different way of working, right? It's not just like an app that we're using, it's just a different way of working. It's starting to think about, geez, the shower thought I had, I shouldn't just let that disappear into the air conditioning. I should like grab my phone, capture that thought, maybe refine that thought on advanced voice with ChatGPT as I drive into work. Or let me take a lunchtime walk. I'll finish it for this. I had to produce my council report for next week, and Ryan will tell you one of the most painful things you can possibly do in this sort of a job. There were some parts of it that I had documentation, and I could use, I could create a project and say, fill out this section, fill out this section, fill out this section. But there were some sections, those sections, where it's here, and the effort to take it from here and get it into words on a page is like a 16-year exercise. So what I said to it was, I want you to think of some prompts that you can ask me, ask questions of those sections to me, and I'm just going to do a brain dump, and your job is to take the brain dump and turn it into a cohesive update for that particular thing. That worked extremely well. That's a different way of working. It means I didn't procrastinate nearly as much as I would have done and get fired. I was able to do that, but in a far less painful way. So I give you the gift of advanced voice, and that sort of start on the desktop, give it a bunch of context, go off on your mobile phone, and rather than of course you want to sometimes have a walk where you're not doing work and stuff, but you can now, I think, just have a different work mode, conversing with what is effectively something that is as smart as the context that you give it. If you say you're a McKinsey consultant and here's a bunch of McKinsey best practices for consulting, it'll walk you through a kind of strategic framework analysis for your business. If you say, here's our business plan, here's our marketing plan, here's an issue that I'm facing with HR, it'll walk you through all of that stuff. It's a super, super valuable tool. And it all is what we talked about earlier. It's giving it the tokens and the context to allow it to give you good answers in the form of token prediction at the other end.
Hey Chris, do you want to jump into your custom instructions as well?
So the custom instructions, I'll just quickly show you mine. I mean, they might be of interest. So there were two pieces. There's the about me piece, which we just did, but there's also this bit, let's think of it. If you had an assistant, like let's say if you were to hire an EA or a chief of staff or something like that, you're going to interview people, and one of the criteria is going to be, can I work with this person? Can we be on the same page? Are they going to annoy the hell out of me? And that's about a style of work. So this second section here, the first section for custom instructions is really about how you want this thing to work with you. So I'll just show you mine. This is in our little prompt pack, so you'll get access to this later. I'm not saying use mine because mine are very opinionated, but it's stuff like write for understanding, not excitement, prioritize clarity and structure over rhetorical flair, avoid exclamation marks and hype, and favor precision over enthusiasm, use systems thinking where relevant, approach a topic as a system with inputs, outputs, blah, blah. It's very geeky and nerdy, and I've refined this over a couple of years now. Don't rehash basics unless asked. Assume that I'm fluent in them. When you help me with code, assume I'm a junior level coder. Condense when possible, use bullets only if it helps surface structure. And then actually, when you're in audio mode, no bullet points or preamble. So I'm sort of getting it to be snappy and concise when it goes into audio mode. So anyway, think of this as like one quite nice leadership concept I heard of is like a document that you create. Let's say your name's Wendy and you're the CEO of the business. It's called a Working with Wendy document. And it's like, when you onboard somebody, it's like a pretty unfiltered thing of this is how I like to work, this is how I operate, and in brackets, you need to you need to take this into consideration when you're working with me. It's a little bit like a Working with Wendy document. Like if you're going to help me, let me give you the context in the form of tokens so that when you give me answers, those answers are attuned to the way that I like to work. So that's all it is. Some of these things might be useful. Again, you can see a couple of small things here. Use Australian English. Not Australian English, because if you say Australian English, you know what you're going to get. G'day, mate. So instead, you can see, after a lot of trial and error, I use that, which is the language code for Australian English. But don't say, speak to me as an Australian. You're dead in the water. All right. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully you'll be back next week. That's obviously the test. I'll quickly throw out that WhatsApp thing again. If you haven't joined that, one of the reasons why we set that little form up was that at least we could tie a name to a mobile number, and we'd know who the mobile number is. But jump on that. We'd rather have you on there and not know who you are than not have you on there. So, because that's where all the comms are going to come through. Steve, anything you wanted to add?
No, just if people have got any questions at this stage, anywhere they've got stuck, we've still got a little bit of time if people are interested. But next week, the theme is probably more around adoption. We're hoping to have someone come in that we think is quite an advanced company in terms of adoption. So they'll talk about what they're up to and how they think about AI.
We'll announce details of the residency. So just to be clear, in case it didn't come through, this is a fully subsidized program. You guys are paying $0 for this. So we managed to get funding from the RDA, from council, from the state government to fund this. So even this residency, where you can book in time with experts like Ryan, that's fully subsidized. So take advantage of that. That's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. All of that stuff is subsidized. This costs nothing. This costs nothing. And I think it's one of those things where, you know, what you put in, you'll get out. So anything else on the program side, Steve?
No, just that URL you had, the tiny URL.
Okay, the URL for this deck is there, or the QR code. Yeah, and then we'll share a bunch of resources in the WhatsApp group, like how you book a session with the mentors, and part of the offer, by the way, when we do these things on a Thursday, is if you would like, particularly for those of you that are traveling a bit, feel free to just come and base yourself here for the day. It's quite a cool environment to be. Peregian's bloody awesome. There's plenty of place to jump on gigabit Wi-Fi and grab a coffee and just hang out here and if you would like to. So that's just part of the offer. All right, thanks friends. We'll see you next week, I hope.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.